Breakdown podcast. He's PennLive Steelers beat reporter Nick Farabaugh. I'm John Luciew. We're live on YouTube. Christmas is coming. The Steelers are one win or a Ravens loss on Saturday away from locking down the AFC North. Hat and T-shirt time, and it's been a long time since we've had that. But all the talk in the 412 is about DK Metcalf, that crazy blue-haired Lions fan who sort of leaned down over the stands by the sidelines, and DK obviously didn't like what he said, and at least grabbed his shirt. We're not sure the exact physical altercation, but right now it's looking like a 2-game suspension for DK that will be very costly. $555K if he forfeits the paycheck for both of those games. And then we find out that there's a clause in that Steelers contract that would void guarantees of future salaries for DK under that contract, because we know he did have some issues coming into Pittsburgh, and certainly Pittsburgh has had some issues with wide receivers who have had various behavioral issues, let's say. I've been really tracking this through social media. It seems the fan sentiment has swung heavily in favor of DK. In other words, supposedly DK, when he wore a Seattle uniform, reported this same fan, but clearly whatever this fan did, it didn't rise to the occasion where he was going to be banned from the stadium. And let's face it, the NFL is not going to police fans in terms of what players don't like that they say. And we know that DK put it out there that he said that this fan used the N-word, which is like throwing gas on the fire, because I've listened to all the tape from this altercation, and it doesn't sound like that was used. Okay. And there was also something supposedly the guy said about his mom. Apparently now, the only thing the guy did say was to use DK's legal name, which I didn't even know what it was. I guess it's DeKalin or something like that. Yep. So we found that out. But you know, the NFL is all about fan interaction. The 12th man. They want you to believe that the fan can have an impact on the game. Coaches actively court that. And other than throwing crap on the field or using racial epithets or swearing or somehow going on the field of play itself, pretty much anything goes. So is there any excuse, Nick? And I know you tweeted out, you saw it even before CBS pounced on the video, say, hey, that was odd. He goes over, gets away from the sideline, goes over to the stands, interacts with this fan. So, I mean, I just don't see any excuse. If this fan, and clearly he knew he could push DK's buttons, because apparently there's video of him saying after the altercation, that was the goal. And to me, this is the ultimate a fan actually affecting the game. Now, DK obviously wasn't sat down during the game. He could have been, I guess. And Dan Graziano's on ESPN or saying that he thinks Tomlin should have sat him down during the game just for, without even talking about a suspension, like an in-game sit down, because that was beyond the pale. So I just don't see any way DK has an excuse for what he did. And certainly if he fabricated that thing about the N-word, I think that's egregious as well. I mean, it just doesn't sit well with me. And I'm not defending the fan. The guy was an a-hole, okay? But if these guys think they can affect you and get in your head and push your buttons sitting in the stands, they're going to do it. You just can't allow that situation as a player.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot to go into here. The other thing that's an aggressing factor from the fan side, basically from DK's side, and why I actually think this is going to get reduced from 2 to 1 game, is this was a repeated thing, reportedly, right? DK had reported this fan before to Seahawks security when they went to Detroit last year. And it seems that this fan has done this multiple times to DK Metcalf over the years. So it's been an inciting thing. Now,
Well, but here's my argument against that. If this was reported, and say it was, and say they looked into it and what the fan said and did, if he just used his legal name and was being loud in the stands and riding him, if he didn't use any racial epithets, if he didn't swear at him, if to me the fact that it was reported before the guy was still had his season tickets, that makes it even stronger in the fans' case because he didn't do anything outside the bounds.
Here's the thing. We're never going to know really what was said. He could have said racial epithets an hour before the game, and DK walked over there and lost his cool. It won't necessarily be revealed just from the videos we've seen. Now, the videos don't show that, but doesn't mean it wasn't said. It also doesn't mean that DK is telling the truth. It's a he said, she said moment. There are boom mics around the field, but not necessarily in the specific area. You're not necessarily always going to pick those up. So really, I mean, the onus has to be, unfortunately, on DK Metcalf to not retaliate. I would agree with that.
I agree.
On the other side of this, though, I do think, this is essentially kind of what a fan wants to do. I mean, I think American sports, listen, I'm a big fan of the English Premier League, and I watch some soccer over there and stuff, and you see international soccer and on all of that, and those fans are crazy, rabid. It's way crazier than this. This would be tame and be cheered for. If this guy, was an Arsenal fan that got someone from Liverpool ejected from a game like this, this guy would be absolutely lauded and just taken as a hero, if you will. It's not the same here. And so, listen, Metcalf has to control his emotions better. We don't exactly know what was said. We probably won't. I won't be surprised if a lawsuit isn't coming here. I think it's certainly possible that we see a lawsuit come down against DK Metcalf. But right now, it's a he said, she said moment, and that's really just kind of what it's going to be. Metcalf, is going to be gone for probably at least a game. I do think this gets reduced to one. As I said, I think what Metcalf is going to say is, hey, the as the athlete, we cannot be provoked into responses. Also, this guy had done it multiple times. I think those will be factors that will get this reduced from 2 to 1. But also the fact that DK's not been suspended before, I think will also probably help his favor on that. But we'll see. The Steelers are not going to be shorthanded against the Browns as a result of that. And if this game ends up mattering, we don't know if it will, because who knows what happens with the Ravens against the Packers. Then that will obviously be a significant factor because Calvin Austin's also hurt with a hamstring. And so you're going to have to get other guys like Thielen, MVS, Roman Wilson, and others to step up.
Hey, I totally think you are, I agree with you on everything. And I am hoping that the suspension is reduced to one game as well, because if it comes down to the Ravens versus the Steelers in week 18, we're going to need all guns blazing. But the one issue I have, provocation. What constitutes provocation? If it's a guy riding a player's butt and saying his name, saying come over here or whatever, if it doesn't rise to, swear words and racial epithets and other things, how do you define provocation? That is, they encourage you, the NFL, and the whole 12th man thing, and coaches have said this, we want it loud. They encourage you to go in there, drink a few beers, and scream your head off. That's what the NFL is. It's a release for fans. It is, and believe me, I was back in Three Rivers Stadium in the late 80s, early 90s, when 99% of the stadium was drunk off their butts. And, pretty much anything goes. I've seen fans roll down the aisles, in the 500 level. It was crazy. To me, the behavior has gotten really good in most games. But
I mean, I think my thing is, listen, if he just said his name, if he just said, I'll use DK's entire government. If he said DeKalen Zacharias Metcalf, then I 100% agree. That is not provocation. But it's, as I said, we're going to get a he said, she said moment because the 15 to 20 seconds pre and post may not represent what happened throughout the whole game. I don't know the timeline. These are all questions, we're going to have to ask DK when he talks with us.
I can't wait.
And just kind of understand the timeline of it and different things of that. And I'm sure he told Mike Tomlin and is going there that the real thing is, and there's two things that I think the Steelers can take away from this outside of just like DK needs to calm down. One, just do not go over by the fans on the sideline.
Right.
Just don't do it. You're asking for trouble on the road. Just don't do it. If you know that your emotions can be an issue, and that's one of DK's been things. He's a real competitor and he's an emotional player. And we saw that even after the incident, right? He gets into this altercation with the linesman, and the next drive for him was just an abject disaster. I mean, he dropped the ball. He had an OPI penalty. I thought the OPI was kind of BS, but still, he had an OPI penalty, and so he just got in his own head. He could be that type of player. The second thing is, to me, just tune the fans out. Like, they're going to be loud. They're going to be effective against some of you guys. But we've seen this happen to other players before. If the fan puts his hands on you, that's a different story. That happened in Buffalo earlier this year when DeAndre Hopkins and Lamar Jackson got touched and Lamar shoved the fan. And that's what people were saying. Why didn't Lamar get suspended? Well, it's because the fan put his hands on his teammate and him. We did see, I will say one thing that's interesting is 2 years ago, Shaq Lawson of the Buffalo Bills pushed an Eagles fan, did not get fined or suspended. Now that wasn't shown all over the broadcast during the game. So there was less public eyes on that, but this is a new precedent for this type of thing. The NFL doesn't want this happening ever again. Theoretically, I mean, if the fan really wanted to, if he really wants to, he could sue the NFL as a whole, right? He could sue them. It's their league. He can do everything like this. And so there's a lot of different things to come from it. But either way, the Steelers are going to have a talk with DK. DK is going to have a talk with them. And who knows what actually happened. And as a result, it's hard for me to have a super strong take on it other than, hey, let's go through preventative measures to make sure this can't ever happen again.
Totally agree. And here's the only other thing, and then we'll move on this. Everybody in that stadium has a phone with a video on it. If that guy was around screaming the N-word or screaming, somebody would have filmed it. That's the other thing. So, I just think in this day and age, with everybody having, a video recorder, if this fan was going beyond the pale, going beyond, and I'm talking about racial slurs, I'm talking about swear words, I'm talking about the actual guideline for provocation, that would get you booted out as a fan. Screaming a guy's name or riding his butt or trying to push his buttons, that's all fair game. That's all fair game in the NFL. And in fact, the whole 12th man and everything else encourages people to do that. But I just think, him throwing around the N-word, if that really wasn't used, I think that's a major problem too for him, because that is throwing gas on a fire. Anybody accused of that in today's world, I mean, that is a lightning rod. You don't go there unless it's true. So I think that's a big problem. And if that was being used, I think somebody would have recorded it. We would have seen it on social media. That's just my 2 cents, because we see everything else on social media. Nobody gets away with nothing. How about the Philly fan that was, I don't know, remember he was getting his girlfriend off in the stadium? I mean, we've seen everything and anything from the stands.
Listen, I've heard and seen things that get slipped through, though, John.
Well, that's true.
All we're doing right now, is speculating.
Okay.
So I think it's hard. If we're talking about the the cold hard facts, the one thing that I could truly say is the Steelers next time just need to say, DK, just don't even go anywhere near the fans. Like that's all I could say. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened for sure. I've heard things from both sides. I've heard things from DK's side. I can't vet those. So it's not up to me. But what I would say is that the Steelers and Mike Tomlin just need to be like, all right, let's make sure this just doesn't happen ever again. And I think that is the way you go about this as the Steelers organization. You go through preventative measures to make sure that your star wide receiver doesn't get in any optics like this ever again with the fan.
Totally agree. And the only thing, and I totally agree with on you, I want to hear from him. I want to hear the Pittsburgh media, which is you and your colleagues, getting the time to question him about this. And I want to see between now and then, you know, from the initial reaction that he put out, he put it out through other, like a podcast or something about the N-word and stuff. If his story becomes more credible in terms of what actually transpired, what got his goat. You know what I mean? If he doubles down on all that stuff, it better be true, is all I'm saying. But if he doesn't, if he thinks better of it, hey, I let this guy get my goat. He didn't really, you know, it'll be interesting to see what he says, because I do think he needs to address it with the Pittsburgh media, before this, goes, well, once the case is settled with the NFL. I think that'll be the appropriate time. Once the appeal is settled with the NFL, he needs to put himself before the media, and take and answer questions. I just think that has to happen for this to be part of the thing put behind. And I agree. I know you're totally right, where Tomlin and everybody else is talking to him behind the scenes and working on that, because you can't let anybody in the stands push your buttons. You know what I mean? I mean, you just can't do it. You know what I mean? So now let's talk football, because hey, we have this multiple clinching scenario where basically, depending on what happens Saturday night with the Ravens in Green Bay, the Steelers don't play another meaningful game until the wild card, which they will host at Acrisure as the AFC North champions. Tomlin has already talked about different scenarios where he would rest starters, probably starting with Aaron Rodgers as the first guy he would show to the bench. What do you think the realistic scenario is, given the fact that what we saw Sunday night against New England? We saw Lamar Jackson go down. We know the Packers core, both QBs are banged up too. How do you see this playing out Saturday night in Green Bay?
Yeah, I mean, what are we going to see? Snoop Huntley against Clayton Tune, or Snoop Huntley against Malik Willis? Or are we just going to see Lamar versus Jordan Love? It's going to be, who knows, right? 2 quarterback injuries for the Packers, and then Lamar's dealing with what is said to be a severe back contusion somewhere around his flank. It's painful. He said he even got a Toradol shot and still couldn't go during the game. He was trying to rotate and throw, and it just wasn't happening. That's something I think to watch. And I don't even think Lamar knows if he'll play this week. If he's out and Jordan Love plays, I think it's going to be really hard for the Ravens to win. I just do. But what they need to do is ride Derrick Henry to the promised land there. What they didn't do this week, right? I mean, he was shredding the Patriots in that game, and then he didn't play at all after the big touchdown run. It's just bonkers stuff there from the Ravens when you think about coaching. That's the type of stuff we were harping on here about the Steelers staff doing earlier this season. Why would you take him off the field? So really, it's going to be, if it's Snoop Huntley against Clayton Tune, which is the worst case scenario, I think, for the Steelers, I'm taking the Ravens. Snoop Huntley, competent backup. Clayton Tune, I mean, I don't know what Clayton Tune can do, man, but I'm not going to put your faith in Clayton Tune. Malik Willis against Snoop Huntley would be a real toss-up. I'd probably lean towards the Packers. I think Malik Willis has shown to do a nice job when he's been in there. Although he does have a shoulder injury, and I don't know if it's a throwing or the non-throwing shoulder. That's something to think about. But if I think, let's say Lamar and Jordan Love play, I think it's going to be a really fun game. I think without Micah Parsons in there, that's a significant deterrent for the Packers defense. And I do think the Ravens offense is going to be able to get theirs on that defense if Lamar plays. But I do like the Packers' chances in this game. It's at Lambeau. I think that really helps too. The fact that you're sending the Ravens on the road, the fact that this is still a really big game for the Packers in terms of playoff implications, it'll get them into the playoffs. All of that very important to this. So we'll see. But the quarterback questions are really just going to be the one that's up in the air here. But really, and before we even talk about the Steelers playing the Browns, the one thing I think about with the Steelers is if even without DK Metcalf, even without some of the other guys, they'll probably without TJ Watt, I don't think is going to play this week. Even without them, if you can't go and beat a 3-win Cleveland team with the 5th-round rookie starting, you don't really deserve to
No.
clinch the playoffs, and you will set yourself up for a winner takes all match in Pittsburgh next week. And I don't think the Steelers want that, but they need to go beat the Browns because the last 2 times they've gone up there, it has not ended well for them. Myles Garrett has gone 5 sacks, has destroyed their offensive line, and the Steelers have lost both those matchups. So the Steelers need to go up there and take care of business. It's not an easy game at all for the Steelers, especially considering their history up in Cleveland recently.
Oh, I totally agree. And adding really fuel to this fire, you got Myles Garrett. What is it, a half or a sack away from the all-time record? You have a rookie, undrafted free agent who's like your 4th guy on the depth chart, playing left tackle, Cook, right? And he's been great, but this is Myles Garrett we're talking about, going for the record, where he just likes to feast on the Steelers. And you have Rodgers, who, is not at 42, can't take big hits. So yeah, this is a dangerous game. But you're right. You got to prepare and take care of business and win the division this weekend, not next weekend. So I'm just thinking, though, how much is it in the Steelers' head that thinking that they're going to win the division by default with a Green Bay win in Lambeau? And are they really preparing for a big game against Cleveland, or are they thinking, because Tomlin put it on the table today that hey, our plans could abruptly change depending on the outcome at Lambeau.
I guess they have to think about it that way, but the players should think of, hey, you know what? The Ravens can't do anything about this if we win on
That's
Sunday.
true.
The Ravens, it's in their control. The Steelers control their destiny completely. The Ravens need help, right? The Ravens actively need a team to lose to get in the playoffs. They don't control their destiny anymore. The Steelers do. And so if I'm a player, if I'm a coach, I say, you know what? Let's go into this week like the Ravens are going to win, and that game on Sunday is going to matter, because if it doesn't, then you can make the adjustments from there. That's not going to be a hard thing to do, right? It's not going to be hard to make the adjustments you want to make on Sunday to your personnel. You can do that easily. You have to prepare with an edge this week. Like, this game is life or death. Like, it's a playoff game because you clinch under your own volition if you do so. And so, yeah, I think the Steelers cannot let that get in their head. They've had such a great stretch here over these 3 games after that loss to Buffalo. I don't think you could have told anyone 3 weeks ago, after the Steelers got crushed by Buffalo, the Steelers could be sitting there 3 weeks later ready to clinch the AFC North title without even playing the Ravens again. That could legitimately happen, and that game could be meaningless. Pittsburgh needs to take care of business and make it as stressless as possible for them in Week 18, because that rest, I think, would also be so big for them, all things considered. You think about, resting guys like Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Rodgers and older players that haven't had a week off since Week 5. I think that would just be really important for them in general.
I agree. That would be huge. And I totally agree. If you can win the division against a 3-win team rather than your rival, when every game usually comes down to 3 points, with the Ravens, you do it. But just your sense, is there that, that urgency to try to get it done with Cleveland? And how much of a problem would it be for these Steelers if somehow this gets bungled and it does come down to Week 18 in Acrisure against the Ravens with everything on the table?
I think that becomes a lot tougher, especially if you don't have DK. I think that would be a real nightmare scenario for them. Do you rush TJ Watt back? Like, there's a lot of questions there with all that. And that's why I think it's under the Steelers' best interest to get this wrapped up this week. They are really banged up. They are a team that is hurt all across their roster. I mean, the offensive line's banged up, the heck and back. The secondary is thin at corner. Pierre and Eccles are hurt. Joey seemingly goes out every game with some ailment and keeps battling through it. You just see the defensive line is battling through some things. Harmon's back now, but he's still, I don't think, 100%. You got 2 edge rushers hurt. Highsmith is wearing a huge brace on his right arm, presumably still playing through a pec strain. He's back and playing like a monster. Like, you just see all these guys playing, and they're clearly hurt. And that's the unfortunate thing of an early bye is you just get snake bit on the back end of the schedule. Jalen Warren's hurt now. He's probably going to play if the Steelers need him to. So there's just a lot of injuries across this team, and everyone's hurt this time of year, but the Steelers are dealing with some legitimate injuries. And so they need, I think, this last week against Baltimore to not mean anything. It would be so much for them to just rest up and get ready to raring to go into the playoffs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Highsmith has the brace on the arm, but that leg worked nicely on that trip on golf. That was funny. Yeah. Of course, it cost us 15, but what the hell? Okay, let's go. I mean, we know DK is at least suspended 1 game. The NFL is definitely going to do that. So what does the wide receiver room look like Sunday in Cleveland?
That's the big question. I mean, so I think we can pretty safely assume that they will not have DK Metcalf. So let's assume that. Calvin Austin on a hamstring, a speed receiver, a week after he strains it. I'm going to bet against him playing, okay? So that means you're already thin. Ben Skowronek has a broken hand and is playing with the club. So he's really not a receiver. He's just your great special teamer, which is good, but all right, so let's eliminate those 3 players. After that, John, what do you have left? MVS, he'll play a lot. Adam Thielen, he'll play a lot. Roman Wilson, this is going to be Roman Wilson's big chance, okay? He was inactive for 3 weeks. Roman Wilson's going to get a shot these last 2 weeks probably to make some noise. So let's see if he can. But that's still only 3 legitimate wide receivers.
What about Scotty? Scotty reared his head.
Yeah, that's right. Scotty Miller. So Scotty Miller. So those 4. You have those 4. Then you need a 5th. So there's a few options there. You could bring someone from the outside. Alan Lazard maybe is out there. He's a former Aaron Rodgers target. Could you bring in Alan Lazard? Sure. I don't think it would take Alan Lazard a ton of time to get up and ready to go. But you also have a young guy, in my opinion, on the practice squad that has kind of just quietly gone about his business. He had a really good training camp this past year. His name's Max Hurlman, and he was excellent in training camp this year. And he's a slot receiver, and he's kind of the quick, speedy guy. He kind of typecast into what Calvin Austin is. And so I think you can maybe bring him up. He brings special teams duties. He can return kicks. He can return punts. He can do different things for you there for utility purposes. I think he could make sense. They also have John Rice Plumlee down there. He's a quarterback turned wide receiver. So he's been on the practice squad for a good little bit here. But the Steelers certainly, I think, are going to be shorthanded at wide receiver. So we'll see if they bring someone from the outside. My guess is right now they're going to rock with those 4 plus Skowronek and bring up Hurlman. And so that's kind of what I would expect. Hurlman knows his offense. He's been very good on the scout team. Everyone I talk to praises him a lot. He gives them trouble while being on the scout team. So I think he's somebody that deserves a shot and has worked hard and deserves a chance to maybe show what he can do.
That's why we love you, Nick. An unheralded name to watch who could come into the fold and into the mix in Cleveland. Now, the one thing we don't have to worry about, as we saw in the Motor City, we had firing on all cylinders in the running game with our 2 great running backs who just were the perfect complement to one another. Electric plays from both Gainwell and Warren. Probably the play of the year from Gainwell with that falling down catch and then getting up and getting the touchdown that apparently Rodgers, if you watch the NFL Films coverage of the game, drew up in the huddle. I mean, it seemed like there was, right at the line, he said, he was telling Gainwell what to do and where to go on that play. So you have Rodgers, who every week just seems to demonstrate his quarterback doctorate. I mean, he has a PhD in quarterbacking. He catches the guy, the 12th man on the field. He tries to rush the snap on that fumble by Mount Washington before they can throw the replay or the challenge, the coach's challenge. He is so smart every week. It's almost like he's a quarterback and the coordinator of that offense. And the O-line has just been this beautiful, pleasant surprise. Even Cook. I mean, Cook is just cooking. So talk about just that aspect of this game and how it's just in high gear right now.
I mean, they've really come together and kind of hit their stride. This team as a whole is still a little bit of an enigma to me. I think at times the offense looks awful. Like, I think the start of the game is maybe not being talked about enough. The Steelers offense did not look good through really the first two quarters until the Gainwell touchdown. But they've found some high water with the run game and the O-line being able to open up these holes. That has been a real find. I mean, the fact that Dylan Cook is just balling out like he has, revelation. It doesn't get any easier. Can you believe there's like one or two guys in the league that I can truly say are a tougher assignment than blocking Aiden Hutchinson for most of the game? And he got one of them, Myles Garrett. And so that'll be a real test for him. But he's been fantastic. Spencer Anderson, I thought, played really well. Andres Pete played really well, too. He played 30 snaps because Spencer Anderson was at that jumbo tight end spot a lot. So those guys, I mean, the whole right side of the line was backup, and they played really well. And then you talk about the other three, Frazier, McCormick, Fautanu, playing like they are season starters. It's really making everything else around it work. But Rodgers, I just think, looks in full command of this offense. I mean, we're talking about a guy that looks comfortable with the receivers he has. He looks like he's on the same page with Thielen already. He trusts MVS. Obviously, he loves Darnell Washington. Pat Freiermuth's playing more, and I think they finally are utilizing Pat Freiermuth, and we're seeing why. He's been a chain mover on third down. He's making some catches in the middle of the field. It just opens up some things behind him because defenses respect Pat Freiermuth. When you watch how they cover him, they respect him. And then it opens up things behind him for guys like Thielen and Metcalf and others. And then we don't even have to mention it, but will because it's the running backs of this offense are the MVPs of the offense, right? What Gainwell and Warren have done as a duo is nothing short of really spectacular. I don't think we could have ever imagined that duo being this good. I knew Jaylen Warren was going to be good. John, you and I did a whole story on him. We knew Jaylen Warren was going to be good. Could we have ever thought Kenny Gainwell would be what he has been? He's like a wide receiver out there at times. And then you just get, I really liked Aaron Rodgers utilizing this after the Miami game, the cast-offs. And a lot of it was in regards to defensive cast-offs in that respect, guys like Duggar and Samuel and others. But the offensive guys, the underratedness of those. Thielen had 3 third-down conversions in this game on third and longs. Scotty Miller had 2 of them on one drive. I just think about that. Obviously, Kenny Gainwell. I think about Dylan Cook. I think about Andres Pete. I think about those guys. And then you think about other underrated pieces. Connor Hayward had some really good blocks in this game at fullback. We saw Spencer Anderson step up. It's just one after the other. It's not a supremely talented roster. It's a cohesive roster that's working together. And Aaron Rodgers, in large part, is the mind behind it. And you see him shift guys pre-snap. You see him set protection. You see him changing the play. Him getting them into the right looks and just playing the defense pre-snap has allowed this offense to find a high floor, which is where they are now. They are not a perfect offense. They are also not a perfect defense. But I think what really deserves just a lot of praise from the Steelers in general is they had an offseason plan this year that failed. It failed signing guys like Slay, Ramsey at corner. I think the defensive vision for this team outright failed, John. And you know what they did? Instead of packing it up and saying this season's over, they made a really just cheap trade for Kyle Duggar after Deshaun Elliott is done for the year. He's been really good. Asante Samuel Jr. comes in. He's been good. James Pierre has been given a shot, and when he's been out there, has been fantastic. They have really built into this edge rusher room and just let those guys be themselves. It hasn't mattered if TJ Watt's out. It hasn't mattered if Nick Herbig's out. It hasn't mattered if Alex Highsmith is out. We've seen great games from Watt, Highsmith, Herbig, and Sawyer. You never know which one's going to be good.
Right.
We've seen tremendous growth. And what I think is maybe the most important thing of the entire season, despite just reconfiguring the vision schematically and personnel-wise, is the growth of the youngsters, I think, is the most important thing here. Joey Porter Jr. looks like his rookie self, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He looks fantastic. The penalties are down. Keanu Benton has become what you think he is. Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer look great as young edge rushers. Derek Harmon is just a revelation in run defense. I mean, the Steelers held the Lions to 13 rushing. Unbelievable, considering everything. And Derek Harmon was a huge reason why. And then you go to the offensive line. I mean, those three guys are looking like future cornerstones. It's just, you feel like you have building blocks here. And so we can talk about this in the offseason, John. Right now, it's a really fun group that's coming together, and you feel like you might be able to win a playoff game with them. But what I think is the most important thing is it's not just a this year thing. They have legitimate young. I didn't even mention Darnell Washington, who's obviously one of those too. But it's a young team that now feels like you have foundational pieces. And so it's not as crazy of an environment if the Steelers happen to get a rookie quarterback this year. We'll see. That's, I think, going to be a little more tenuous than maybe we thought. But if you dropped a rookie into this environment now, John, it's not crazy anymore.
No.
There's enough there to support that guy.
No, I love that, and I love just seeing the development, seeing the maturation, seeing people coming into their own, and I think we have the foundation is there. Couple quick thoughts before we wrap this up because we're already over time. Darnell Washington, is he too tough for his own good because he keeps he keeps vertical, and trying to push for a couple more yards, and then he gets the ball taken away. Gets gang tackled and the ball taken away, and that's like the second time that's happened. I mean, he's almost like he's too tough for his own good.
He's so tough to bring down, and we know that. But he does have to be cognizant of how he carries the football. I always thought, and I'm going to use the Ravens as an example here because I heard Caleb on Chason, one of the Patriots edge rushers, utilize this adage because I think it's a really good one. He said the Ravens ball carriers carry the ball like speed skaters. You've watched the Olympics, you've seen speed skaters. You ever seen Apollo Anton Ono and how he goes around the skating ring? That is how you see some of these guys holding the football. It's like away from their body. Yeah. It's not tight and loose and high where you can really hold on to it. And I think Darnell sometimes gets into that. He's a little lackadaisical at times when he's barreling through guys, and that can leave him prone to the punches. And that's how you can slow down someone like him. And so that is, I think, something he just has to work on. I will also say, while I loved watching the highlight of him just bulldozing DJ Reed on the last drive of the game for the Steelers, you got to get down and bounce, guys. You can't get out of bounds. It stopped the clock, gave him basically a free timeout, and gave him more time to drive down the field. And Steelers ended up winning, but still, clock management, cognizant situationally, these little details will matter in the postseason if you want to make a run. So things like that do have to matter. But Darnell is a real fun player. They've kind of unlocked him as a receiver. They've unlocked him as a run blocker. Everything about his game has become more unlocked this season with Aaron Rodgers at the helm. So it has just looked a lot better this year for him. But yes, that is a detail I think you would work on. And everybody on the offense should work on it. I think most of the Steelers ball carriers do it really well, where they are able to hold on to it. But, it hasn't hit them yet. But I also notice DK Metcalf at times gets a little loose with his with how he holds the football. He hasn't fumbled yet, so it hasn't mattered. But just something to keep an eye on. So those two guys in particular are the guys I would look to. We've seen Jaylen Warren have fumble issues in the past, but it hasn't really popped up much this year. He's mostly fixed that, I think.
And lastly, a lot of offensive pass interference calls in that Detroit game, including on the last play of the game that negated, which I think was not really a touchdown, because I thought St. Brown's forward momentum was not only stopped, he was pushed back 4 yards and was almost on the ground when he supposedly lateraled the ball to Goff, and then Goff goes in for the touchdown that wasn't. And, you know, all of Detroit was elated and then deflated like a flat tire. What did you think of the OPI calls in that game, and that the way that last play of the game was called?
Well, this referee crew is one of the highest rated crews just for that penalty in particular. I think they called 30% of offensive pass interferences this year coming into the game, so they kind of known for that. And here's the thing: I thought some of the OPI calls were things I wouldn't have called, but they set a hard boundary and a hard line for OPI, and they stuck to it. If the Darnell penalty was a penalty, Tesla's play was a penalty, right? I think Amon-Ra was clearly clear OPI. I thought the one that I didn't really like was the DK one. I didn't think that one was OPI. So that's the one I didn't really like. But, you know, I probably would. I think the Amon-Ra one is OPI every day of the week and twice on Sunday. The pick plays by Tesla and Washington, you can kind of skirt around. DJ Reed's also holding Metcalf on that play. So it's like 2 penalties on the play should have been called. The refereeing in this game was at least consistent. If you're going to set a hard line for something, at least be consistent with it, and they were. So I'll give them that. I don't know why they explained the last play that way. That should have been forward progress dead, but it wasn't. So if the OPI hadn't been called, it would have been a touchdown, and it would have been probably, you know, the Steelers would have just been all about forward progress, because he got driven back like 8-9 yards before he lateraled it. So yeah, that should have been blown dead, but they never blew it dead. So I will say, saying the ruling on the field is a touchdown, however, is absolutely a crazy troll move from Carl Sheffers, the head referee of that crew. But I was kind of fine with it. At least they were consistent with how they called it.
I agree.
I also do think, you know, I think there was a real argument to be had that Kyle Duggar's DPI penalty early on the drive was not DPI. I thought he batted the ball away, and JMO got turned around as they collided before the ball was going to hit JMO. So I didn't necessarily think it was a clear DPI. I'm not hating that they called it, but they only called it, and I was watching it on the field. They only called it because Williams threw his arms up in 2 directions. Bad optics refereeing wise when you're in this age and era, but we will see where things go from there, because different crews are going to call things differently. So just because, you know, some of those OPI penalties were called this week, don't expect it this, you know, next week. That is a unique personality of that group. And I thought Mike Tomlin used that kind of term today when he was talking about the referee crews. Refereeing crews also take on personalities just like teams do. Like the Steelers' personality is a smash mouth physical team on the trenches. Well, refereeing crews have a similar mentality where they can be like, hey, we are hard line on holding. We are hard line on, I don't know, illegal contact. We will call hip drop tackles, but no one else will. Things like that are personalities, and teams do scout referees and crews like that just to be sure on what they have to emphasize during the week.
As always, great analysis, Nick. And certainly we had a lot to talk about. We went way over. I saw that the DK Metcalf discussion that we had ignited a lot of things in the comments. I do want to clarify that when I was talking about the N-word being used, I was expressing the fact that it's a third rail. Both using the N-word is a third rail, you don't touch it, but also accusing someone of saying the N-word is also the third rail. If they didn't say it, you don't make that accusation lightly. That is a no-no. Like Nick wisely said, we don't have all of the facts. We do have some video of what was said by this guy. My feeling is if he had said other things, we'd probably have video of that, because everybody has a phone, and if somebody's up there screaming right on the sidelines the N-word, I think somebody would have probably taken a video of that. We'll see. And also we'll see what DK says once he does talk to the Pittsburgh media, which we hope he will. But of course, first, we will hear how his appeal of the 2-game suspension comes out. We will see how the Saturday night game between the Ravens and the Packers at Lambeau comes out. And then we will watch the Steelers go to Cleveland, the mistake by the lake, and try to wrap up the AFC North in a hat and T-shirt game that could have playoffs back in Pittsburgh come the wild card round. All I can say is go Steelers. And just if anybody's looking for a last-minute Christmas game gift, Craig Wolfley, who just passed away, Steelers broadcaster, O-lineman, longtime guy, Tunch Ilkin. He was on the line when Webby was there. Pick up the book. It's worth a read, just for any longtime Steelers fans like myself. Merry Christmas, everybody, and go Steelers.